memories of love hang upon high stars.
All the souls I've lost to tears now the autumn jars, and the air around me here thickens with their song. Sing again their nameless tunes, sing again and strong.
Willows in September touch the water clear, set among the rushes tall of the flowing year. Rising up from sunlit past comes a shadowed sigh, running toward me silently, love to fortify. Many are the graceful hearts hung upon this tree, and it seems there's room for mine on these branches free. And the sky above the tree, whether wet or bright, is my ease and comforting, my good news and light. beside the still water. anoints my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life, and I will live in her house forever, forever and ever. Glory be to our Mother and Daughter and to the Holy of Holies, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. This rose, I know my fears. I know my fears. I know my fear. I know my fear. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know my fears. I know my fears. I know my fear. I know my fear. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose will open.
Nice to see you out online. Nice to see you here in Cole Hall. Each time we get together, we ring our bell to remind us of the promises made and the promises we keep. The first bell is to remind us to renew and rebuild relationship. We are on the unceded land of the Muwekma tribe of the Ohlone Nation, and our covenant going forward with them is to understand, accept, and appreciate their culture and how it is trying to survive today. The second calls us into relationship with ourselves and one another, that we open ourselves to the wisdom and diverse array of perspectives in this room, beyond this room, and in the world we're part of. We invite an ever-widening circle of compassion and commitment until we are all beloved. And the third bell calls us into relationship with our children and our children's children out to the seventh generation, reminding us that what we do today or what we fail to do will be felt by those who come after us.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Paul K. Davis. I am your worship associate this morning. Some of you may wonder why I'm worship associate for a service on romantic love, since this is not an aspect of my personality I emphasize. Well, a week ago, Reverend Greg sent out an email to all the worship associates listing open Sundays and asking our availability. Like others, I responded, including today on my list. Tuesday, I got an email saying I had won the lottery. Luckily, I have realized I do have things to say on the topic, perhaps mostly cautionary to others. I believe my emphasis on my scientific side contributed to my first marriage lasting only 4 years. After some failed efforts at dating like a teenager when I was already an adult, friends promoted a relationship with their neighbor. I believe they painted an unduly favorable image of me. Nevertheless, we began dating and realized we had pretty much the same ideals and overlapping interests. So we married, had a daughter, and raised her together. But when our daughter went off to college, it was not clear we had a relationship with each other. Separation was seriously considered. I sometimes wished I was gay so that I would not need to understand the other gender. But alas, I'm heterosexual. But about this time, 2 lesbian couples among our friends broke up. While doing my best to be a supportive friend of theirs, I realized the issue is not understanding another gender, but understanding another individual and understanding the process of relationship. One of my wife's most common complaints was that I was not communicative. This, of course, inhibited her ability to build a relationship with me. I adopted the motto, quote, "Bad communication is better than no communication," unquote, and with considerable fear began trying to express my emotions more. I began changing, and our relationship began improving. I am still changing, and I hope I continue. I mentioned that we have overlapping interests. A big one is music. Though we prefer different genres and often relate in different ways to music we are performing. Nevertheless, when we recently saw in the course list of a university community learning program a songwriting class, we enrolled together. The final class assignment last November was to write a song using the 50s rock chord progression. I thought love song and I thought relationship change. Upon reading Reverend Greg's description of this service, I realized the resulting song was appropriate. Here it is, written as imperfectly as my romantic side and sung as imperfectly as my romantic side, not up to our choir quality, I think, but here goes. They say there's a magic moment which we must cherish always. The moment when we first met, that marks the best of all days. But an ancient philosopher once said, change ensnares us always. I'll change with you and you with me, so love will vanish never. They say there's a special place that's just for me and you, to which we should return, for our love to renew. But an ancient philosopher once said, the river flows forever. I'll change with you and you with me, so love will vanish never. They say we should love each other just the way we are, accepting what we see now will help our love go far. But an ancient philosopher once said, change ensnares us ever. I'll change with you and you with me, so love will vanish never. I'll change with you and you with me, so love will vanish never. Let us now worship together and change together.
Wow, that was above and beyond the call of duty. If anybody is interested in being a worship associate, just know that that is not required. But it was lovely. Each Sunday we come together, we celebrate a tradition within Unitarian Universalism and within this congregation to share our chalice lighting together. We usually do the one that our children came up with many years ago and has been adapted a couple times, but on the first Sunday of the month, we have a new thing where we're exploring a piece of our covenant. So I want to explore this one piece of our covenant. It is the, what's the thing called that's the end of the covenant? It's the wrap up. Anyway, please join in reciting in unison this part of our covenant. Our covenant is not a contract. It is a declaration of aspirations, not ultimatums. It is a living document which will evolve as we do. We will all fall short sometimes. When we do, we will recognize our own responsibility for repair and respond resourcefully with love for others and ourselves.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Mission Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Deanna Alm. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm a member of the board. And we're so glad you've joined us this morning. Unitarian Universalism is a radically inclusive, non-doctrinal, non-dogmatic, open-minded, and open-hearted faith. Two of our core beliefs are the worth and dignity of every person and the value of an individual and responsible search for meaning in the world. This is a place that inspires us to bring those beliefs to life through introspection and action every day. If this is your first time here, we appreciate the spirit of exploration that brought you and hope you'll want to get to know us and to return again. We use chat and Zoom or our book near the welcome table to share joys and concerns, which are personal milestones of importance that will be read aloud during the service. We have social hour after the service where we visit with one another in breakout rooms or here in person. The worship host will advise the folks on Zoom about the breakout rooms immediately after the service. I'm also your welcome representative today, so when I return to my table at the back, I'll post a link in the chat to our weekly newsletter so you can see all our events coming up. We encourage you to join anything that speaks to you. And I will also put our welcome email, welcome@mpuuc.org, and you can use that to request a newsletter or any other information that you'd like. I do have a number of things I want to call your attention to today. Attendees should be masked inside and outside Cole Hall during the service, preferably with N95 or KN95 masks, and I have some of those back at my table, and you're welcome to help yourself. Eating and drinking during the service are only allowed outside. There's more information on the bulletin board over on this side of Cole Hall and in Week on the Peak. For next Sunday, it's going to be a special day in Cole Hall. Our asylum seeker, who we have all kind of seen through a long and arduous process, is going to be present to thank us for all of our help in his successful appeal for entry into the United States. And then after the service, Jerry Ramey, Don Ramey's brother, is going to photograph everybody who's there on the steps of Cole Hall. This is our first congregational portrait since the pandemic. Those who wish to wear masks during the portrait process are welcome to do so. We'd also like to ask permission to take screenshots of those in attendance by Zoom. This is going to be a really special time for all of us to be together, so if you are comfortable coming in person, would strongly invite you to come next week. And like I said, you're welcome to wear a mask if you like, or we would like to capture your lovely image online. The next thing is silence your electronic devices. I actually remembered to do that before I came up here for a change. The email with the link to the auction catalog for our virtual black and white gala went out yesterday, so please do check your email for instructions. One thing we've added is a new feature where we're offering 2 tickets for 1 bid for some events. That allows people who are in a partnership to make 1 bid and get 2 places at one of our fabulous dinners. Because we're still receiving donations, the online catalog will always have the most recent and up-to-date information, so do check back. What's there today may be added to tomorrow. You do need to buy a ticket in order to receive the Zoom code to attend the actual event. And that's 7 p.m. on Saturday, February 11th. We really want you to join us for games, conversation, and some friendly competition for all the marvelous offerings that our Mission Peak members have put forward. So please come, celebrate, and support Mission Peak UU. When I return to my table, I will post a link to the Square store. That's where you buy your tickets for the online event. And also the link to the auction, where you can see and bid on all we have to offer. Thanks so much.
There we go. Good morning. I'm Kathy Walcave, Chair of the Membership Committee. When many people have walked through our doors, they have found us to be a warm and welcoming congregation. Feeling a sense of community is an important reason why many people become involved in this congregation. Hybrid services have been wonderful in allowing all of us to be together. Those who don't live in the area, those who live in the area but who are unable to come in person, and those of us here in Cole Hall. The small disadvantage to hybrid services is that it can be more challenging for us to feel connected to each other like we did when everyone was here in Cole Hall. The membership committee has proposed an addition to the Sunday service. For now, I call it Lights, Cameras, Action, although that was not vetted by anybody else, so my apologies to everyone. While it is not required, I would like to encourage those of you who are attending via Zoom to turn on your camera if you haven't already. Having your camera on helps those of us here feel more connected to those of you there. It also allows those of you to feel more connected to each other. And last but not least, it helps visitors to get a better sense of who we are by seeing live faces and not just blank screens. Because this is new, I'm sure we'll need to make adjustments, but there's no time like the present to start something new. We have the lights. I'll check with our Zoom hosts. They'll be setting up the cameras and those of you at home. And then it's time for action. Now, a Zoom host who I know very personally told me that those of us in Cole Hall might be little for the people on Zoom to see us. So those of us in Cole Hall, I'm going to ask you to wave a nice big wave. And those of you on Zoom, would you please wave? And maybe next time take off the closed captions. No, face this way, everyone. Yes. See, this is part of the adjustment process. That camera, there we go. Thank you, Zoom people, for being patient with those of us in Cole Hall.
We'll get better.
Yes, so I love it, and may our greeting each other Help all of us to feel a sense of love and connection that we can carry in our hearts throughout the week.
Though I speak with bravest fire, and have the gift to always time, and have not love, my words are vain as sounding brass and hopeless gain. Though I may give all I possess, and shining so my love profess, but I not in my love within, the prophet soon turns strangely thin. Spirit of our hearts control, our spirits long to be made whole, that inward love God every day, by this we worship and are free.
This is a story written a long time ago by a very wise philosopher. His name was Plato. Plato spoke with all kinds of people in the world and finally came upon a common experience that he had heard described: a yearning for connection, and how we look for it our whole lives. He wrote a story in a book he called Symposium. The story was about how long, long ago there were many great and powerful gods who roamed the heavens. At the same time, people roamed the earth. But people were different at that time. They weren't separate individuals like we know today. People in those days were combined, connected. They were composite beings possessing both male and female characteristics. In fact, they were so connected, their power went beyond male and female, beyond gender altogether. Each creature had 2 heads and 2 faces and 4 hands and 4 feet, and they were masculine and feminine. Being unified gave them tremendous power. In fact, so magnificent were these composite beings that occasionally they dared to attack the gods. At least, they got pretty snarky. The gods, of course, did not care for this, but they didn't know quite how to punish the humans. When other creatures taunted or attacked the gods, they simply smoted them.
which is destroying them by showering them with lightning. But then one of the gods pointed out that they didn't want to do this because if they smoted all the humans, then there would be no one left to build temples and offer them sacrifices. Zeus, the king of the gods, pondered the situation and finally came up with a solution. Humans will continue to exist, he decreed, but I will ask the god Apollo to cut them in two. Then they will be diminished in strength, and so we need not fear them. So, upon Zeus's request, Apollo proceeded to split each being into two, and then make the wounds invisible, leaving only the belly button as evidence that there was once a powerful connection. The two halves were then placed far away from each other in different parts of the world sometimes, and they felt cut off from each other, disoriented, confused, and lonely. Zeus's plan worked even better than expected, for the two halves became so preoccupied with their separateness and disconnection that they felt only half a creature. And instead of using their power to go to battle with the gods, they ended up using most of it to try and find their other half, or to take out their frustration at being disconnected on others who they determined were not their other half. But for many of them, they felt very alone and sad. So many of them wound up looking for their other half, and they looked for someone who, when they were with them, it felt like they were complete. A great many looked, and they found many others who had found their other half, but it just made them feel more alone. So they would look deep down at what made them, who they were, and search the world over for someone they felt could really understand and accept and affirm that. Sometimes they had to look for a long time. They looked very carefully at each person they came across and treated them with attention, acceptance, understanding, and affirmation, because that person may just be the one they had been looking for their whole lives. That's how humans learned to reclaim their power and rise to the level of the gods.
Before introducing our internal generosity, I wish to express my and our thanks to the First United Methodist Church, from whom we rent this space, who have invited us into some of their activities, who have held various joint services with us. And it was at the recent joint service that some of us noticed their greeting of people from the congregation to the Zoom. So I want to make sure we thank them and feel generous toward them as well as toward ourselves. We take up a collection on Sundays for the simple reason that our purpose in gathering is for more than ourselves. We want to make sure that the ministries that we need, the ones that infuse worth and dignity into our children, our youth, our programs of learning and leadership, and our ministries of anti-oppression and our work in the larger world are in place to meet the needs of others. We hope you will make a contribution toward these worthy causes by mailing your check to Mission Peak UU congregation at the address on the screen. You can also use the bill pay option in your online banking, or drop your check in the Mission Peak mail slot, or pay online with a credit or debit card. Thank you for supporting and sustaining the efforts of our members, friends, and staff. Your contributions make loving, learning, and leadership more possible.
Thank you, Paul. Every Sunday we come together to find and to offer strength and resilience and care. One of the reasons that we join communities like this is because it is hard to face the hard times and not as satisfying to celebrate the joyful times if we don't have wonderful people who know us, who can celebrate that with us. So we come together and share our joys and concerns, which I
brought the book up too soon.
Oh, well, yeah, in case anybody wants to write it down, you can come up here and write it down. But if you're online and you'd like to write down a joy or concern online, we will share those aloud so that we can celebrate together and to know that our joys and sorrows are being held by the larger community. If you have a joy or concern that's more private, I invite you to send me an email or Reverend Barbara an email, and we will call you personally. And if you would like to do something to commemorate, like in here at Cole Hall, we drop a stone in our stone garden while the music plays, feel free at home to just do something solemn or commemorative to know that you are connected to this community.
Tell me where is the road I can call my own, that I left, that I lost so long ago. All these years I have wandered, oh, when will I know? There's a way, there's a road that will lead me home. After wind, after rain, when the dark is done, as I wake from my dream in the cold of day, through the air there's a calling from far away. There's a voice I can hear that will lead me home. Rise up, follow me, come away to the call. With love in your heart as the only song, there is no such beauty as where you belong. Rise up, follow me, I will lead you home.
These are the joys and sorrows that are alive in our heart this week. Our online feed seems to have blown up in praise and appreciation for Paul Davis, for his singing and his courage and his testimony. I think you have groupies now, Paul. There's also a very earnest offer of invitation from the choir for anyone who feels so moved to sing like that. There are other people you can do that with. Lots of love from, well, Julie Ganslin just wants everyone to know that she loves them, really. From Allison McDonald, just testimony of loved celebrating Black History Month with folks in her community, and a panel of men who grew up in one of the first intentionally integrated communities in the U.S. in Sunny Hills, spoke about how being part of such a community supported them, and the roles of Black fathers, and that comes at a very important time for a lot of people. Appreciation and praise for Shauna Pickett-Gordon for her arrangements of our music and how she arranges the harmonies. From Peggy Rahman, who is delighted that a young man that she's known since he was a toddler, along with his mother, Asha, a South Indian singer, with the most beautiful voice, they have been nominated for a Grammy for the Best Fusion Music category. And Peggy has enjoyed their album for many, many months, and just really, our fingers are crossed in appreciation of Rohit and Asha for their amazing gifts. David and Lisa Lefcourt celebrated yesterday, and a lot of us were able to join them in remembering their mother, Louise, who was a wonderful member of the community. Thanks to everyone who helped put it together, who attended. It was really a love fest. Lots of stories of love were shared, and those feelings are still carried by a lot of us. Let's see. Shauna Pickett-Gordon lifts up just solace and caring and healing hearts, especially in the wake of the shooting that was in Half Moon Bay, and now is in too many parts of this country. May we protect one another with our presence, our care, and not with our weapons. And we keep those who are healing in our thoughts. And last prayers for those who have their joys and sorrows tucked tenderly into their hearts, but not into their words. We invite us all to keep our hearts, our hands, our doors, and our arms open.
Mrs. Gross, I need a hall pass.
But you're in the middle of your test.
I know, but I have to go. It's a medical condition.
have a hall pass?
Hey, have you seen a guy in a knit cap with a disgustingly cute girl go by?
Every day. That's the whole school.
No, they were different.
You seem lost, John.
I'm not lost, God. It's just that while I'm working on this bogus extra credit thing, my boyfriend is starring in Who Wants a Perky Blonde Assistant?
Are you threatened by her?
No.
No. Is that why you made her fall into a plate of chicken wings?
Hey, that wasn't real, and I told you to stay out of my daydreams. Is it so wrong to imagine stuff?
No, it's not wrong.
I mean, if Byron hadn't let his mind wander, we wouldn't have his fabulous poetry, which is actually really boring, except for the one that Roger read to me.
Roger looks good in the tux.
Again, with the spying.
Dreams influence and accentuate life, but they don't define it.
Wait, you were the one that told me to study romantic poetry.
Study, yes, so that you can understand it. Differentiate.
Am I losing Adam?
People don't really belong to each other, Joan, regardless of what contract they sign. They choose each other every day. But if you're worried, why don't you just ask him? Run along, you haven't finished the test.
And they all lived happily ever after. There's a surprise. You guys really like that ending.
Oh, well, you have a better one?
They all move towards spiritual growth and enlightenment.
Yeah, that's gonna work with the kids.
Ever notice that the guy always has to risk his life and the girl is nearly dead when he finds her? It takes a kiss to wake her up, and they ride off together. It's a nice metaphor.
For what?
Death and resurrection.
Yeah, well, that's a fun party game.
It happens all the time. The illusion dies so that something deeper can take its place.
Are you saying that Adam and I are an illusion?
Romance serves a purpose. It's a meditative state. It puts logic to sleep so that people can come together. Otherwise, you guys probably wouldn't risk it.
Why did you have to make love so complicated? I mean, couldn't that one thing have been easy?
Love is big. It's a bright light in the universe. And a bright light casts a big shadow. So what do you want to do, Joan?
How am I supposed to know?
By looking at it. Real love is hard work. You have to decide if you want it in your story. Or if you'd rather just stay in the dream.
Kind friends all gathered round, there's something I would say, that what brings us together here has blessed us all today. Love has made a circle that holds us all inside, where strangers are as family and loneliness can't hide. You must give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and laughter. Give yourself to love. Give yourself to these mountains in the rain. I've learned to love the wind. I've been up before the sunrise to watch the day begin. I always knew I'd find you, though I never did know how. But like sunshine on a cloudy day, you stand before me now.
So give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and laughter, and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love.
Love is born in fire. It's planted like a seed. Love can't give you everything, but it gives you what you need. And love comes when you're ready. Love comes when you're afraid. It will be your greatest teacher, the best friend you have made.
So give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and laughter, and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. Give yourself to love.
That is definitely one of the best peak rock or peak performers pieces. Oops. People often think ministers are in churches because they are on the lookout for new members, or they're on the lookout for big pledges or things like that, or people who will volunteer time. Now, all those things have their importance, but the real truth is that ministers come to church because they are on the lookout for love. And we're looking for it in you, in the people who come to church. Because most people come to church for love, and a few come because they have love in their heart to give. Many others come because they want love, and they've heard church is a place where love is shared. A minister looks for love because love will lead to all of those other things like new members and pledges and things like that. But all those other things don't always lead to love. Religious communities, I think, are hotspots for conversations about love. Some seek out religious communities because they've recently found love and they want to talk about it. They want to shine a light on their love, have it blessed. That, in a nutshell, is what a wedding is. Let me say, I have done hundreds of weddings, and most are truly worth shining a light on, but I confess I have come across my fair share where the shining light gets focused on the wrong thing. not the love, but the hype and the hoopla purchased to celebrate the love. The 10-story cakes, the sequined gowns, the grandiosity of the event, and the love underneath gets overshadowed. When you think about it, it shouldn't surprise you. The glamour and the glitter is created to catch our attention. But love most of the time is rather blue collar. It's ordinary, everyday care and support that is under the scenes. Real love is just basic attention and appreciation and acceptance. And it's often tender, sometimes even timid. It doesn't fit well into a circus atmosphere. Mostly what I want the wedding to do is tell the story of love. I want the story of how the couple found love and how they each have learned to distinguish real love from all of the other things that often dress up as love. I want the couple to be able to explain to the crowd that they're gathering how they want these people to support the love that they have found. Because the truth is, real love needs some help. Long after the cake is cut, the blessing is offered, and the last pooper has partied on, real love is left to fend for itself. And it needs reminders of the community that you gather about the promises that were made. Real love sometimes needs support when it gets down to the backside of richer or poorer in sickness and in health. That's why when I do weddings, I often prefer the interviews before the wedding more than the wedding itself. Because it's in the interviews where the real stories are told. And I am a sucker for love stories. All kinds. I love the sickeningly sweet kinds with your head in the clouds love stories, or the bittersweet, dramatic, feet stuck in the tar pits love stories, and everything in between. One of the best stories that I've heard came from author and former UU minister Robert Fulgham. Some years back, he received a carefully preserved note from the mother of the bride on the eve of Susan's marriage to Bill. The note had been intercepted 16 years prior by a third grade teacher, and she passed it on to the parents, who saved it for posterity. It read, "Dear Billy, if you don't say you love me and walk me to the bus stop, I will kill myself and beat you up. I love you and want to marry you soon, Susie." Now, to be sure, most couples who come to me for weddings don't have that level of determination or clarity. Most couples I've met usually struggle to put into words their certainty that they feel in their heart, and they usually manage to do so without threats of violence. But I've heard some good stories in my day. I heard one woman say that she realized that she loved her fiancé because he would wash her hair and paint her toenails. And I agreed that any man who would do that is indeed a catch. One couple I interviewed was having a really hard time with the question until the man finally said that he loved his bride because she could laugh like a hyena. She demonstrated it too. Although never having heard a hyena laugh, I can't vouch for the authenticity, but I will say that I was glad they could come up with other reasons. The reality is that the majority of stories I get to hear, although sweet and endearing, quite often have less to do with love and more to do with the idea of falling in love. And in the latter category, one sentiment comes up repeatedly. It is the idea of wholeness. Couples who say, "This person completes me. I feel they are my other half." When these answers come, I listen. I think of Plato's Symposium. I nod my head. Once powerful beings cut in two, feel lost, and search the earth over for their other half. Finding that wholeness is what many couples come into my office citing as proof, as being that their love is true. They describe their beloved as the one and only who was meant for them and confess having complete knowledge and understanding of one another, finishing each other's sentences. They use words like fate and destiny. I listen, I smile, I nod my head. I understand and appreciate and even have my own experiences of what they're describing. It is indeed truly lovely, but it is not true love. Marriage counselor Harville Hendricks points out that there is a reason why this feeling of oneness feels familiar. He claims that it is a natural longing for that feeling of connection we had during birth. Hendricks points out that just before birth, every fetus shares a sense of oneness with its mother. There is an exchange of blood and food and oxygen and warmth, and even after birth, although in two bodies, there continues to be this oneness, a symbiosis and a unity that thrives while the infant nurses. But, eventually we grow up, and with growth comes the ability to differentiate into our own unique self, with our own identity, our own needs and feelings. And with our own identity comes our own ego, that part of us that is created to protect us. And our ego, as soon as it finds its place overseeing field operations, it sets up a command center, literally, and begins to command or point out all the ways in which our parents failed to meet all of our needs. And as we get older and our abilities grow to match the size of our needs, we begin to realize all these outside agents can't possibly know every inside bit of intel that we have about our needs and desires. And thinking that we can do better managing all of those needs, we seek our independence. But becoming independent triggers the necessity to grapple with feelings of our separateness, of our aloneness. The need to overcome his or her own separateness, to escape the prison of our aloneness, is what psychologist Erich Fromm called humanity's paramount challenge. It echoes what Plato described, the human angst at being split in two. Falling in love is the euphoric moment when we discover the unique combination of enough attraction, enough trust, and enough opportunity to lower the powerful shield of our ego and rejoice in that union of connection. But falling in love also has its downsides, the greatest of which is that it is usually temporary. Sooner or later, we discover that our partner, like our parents, isn't able to meet all of our many needs. So that when we begin to notice that our partner focuses on meeting their own needs instead of ours, it triggers a threat to our sense of importance and well-being, and our ego snaps back into place in its role as protector. And disagreements, maybe even fights, arise. And eventually, most couples who briefly felt completeness discover they are not two people experiencing oneness, but actually two individuals with different histories and different needs and expectations in one relationship. If falling in love is like the electric window of our ego coming down to reveal connection, disillusion is the electric window coming up and pinching our heart. It's painful and scary, especially when you notice it's your partner's finger on the electric window button. But it is at this point that a couple will either become disillusioned and fall out of romantic love, or begin the real work of true love. This is what God tried to explain to Joan. Real love is hard work. You have to decide if you want it in your story or if you'd rather just live in your dreams. There are many different definitions of love. Psychologist Scott Peck offers the definition I find most helpful. He defines love as, quote, the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. The will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. This means two things. First, because love is a will to extend oneself, it is an action, not a feeling. It therefore requires work and effort, even sacrifice, not just assumptions or googly eyes or sentimentality. The other thing Peck mentions is that in order to be love, it must nurture growth. It's common to walk into love assuming its main purpose is to provide comfort. But love is not protection from adversity or change. That's your ego's job. Love is the willingness to witness someone through difficult change. Comfort avoids the pain of growth rather than seeking to engage it. Offering love, that is, being a nurturer of growth, is fundamental to making relationships healthy. Being a good partner in a relationship is again akin to good ministry in a church. It is paying attention for love and then learning to forge paths for people to walk that path and find one another on it. Because true love will inevitably come across the cries of inconsolable romantic despair, these are often heard from the people who insist that while they were in it for the long haul, their no good, dirty, rotten snake of a partner changed. Instead of being the red-caped superhero version they thought they were marrying, their partner turned out to be the ordinary bad breath in the morning version. Why can't it be easy like it's supposed to, they wonder. Remember God's reply to Joan in the video. Love is big. It's a bright light in the universe, and a bright light casts a big shadow. It's when people find themselves standing in such shadows that they feel themselves falling out of love. And if they happen to be in a marriage or any kind of relationship built on covenant of assumed promises, they can sometimes feel themselves falling out of that covenant. Into those shadows comes the question of whether there is actually enough light, enough love to jump back in. It's a real choice. And though our quest for love is strong, we know it's not always right to beat our head against a wall. A covenant, even a covenant of love, is not supposed to be a suicide pact. A rigid relationship welded together by ultimatums and guarantees will never become true love. Such strategies are often more preoccupied with safety than with connection. And safety is the goal of the ego, which protects us from our fears. Connection is the goal of love, which moves us through fear into growth. Professor of psychiatry Emmanuel Tenney had a great way of describing this. He said, quote, "There are no guarantees in relationship. From the viewpoint of fear, none are strong enough. From the viewpoint of love, none are necessary." Keeping this in mind, you can hear the wisdom in the covenant that we have created together here at Mission Peak. Listen again. Our covenant is not a contract. It is a declaration of aspirations, not ultimatums. It is a living document which will evolve as we do. We all will fall short sometimes, and when we do, we will recognize our own responsibility for repair and respond resourcefully with love for others and ourselves. That's our covenant. You can always tell when love becomes true love because by that time it is usually covered in Band-Aids. Both partners are decorated by medals of honor awarded to them by the other. They are recognized for acts of extraordinary courage or bravery, taking fire in the tantrum of '04, or resuscitating each other in the battle of the budget. These are the struggles that we are sent into years earlier with little armor other than faith and hope and a few promises. Paying attention to the love in my own life and the congregations in which I've served, I've been part of seeing it revealed in interesting ways. And I have come to this conclusion. Although I love weddings, I've had far more success finding stories of real love, of true love at memorials. Yesterday, we had a memorial for Louise Lefcourt, and it was amazing. Just a love fest with lots of amazing stories about how people had worked through and grown through change. Many of those stories are still being told and will be told for years to come. I think we need more opportunities to tell these love stories, not just at the end of our life, but when we find ourselves at the end of our rope, when we have to say goodbye to that person we had been in order to become the person that love is calling us to be. Maybe it's saying goodbye to our freedom when we have children, or to our identity as a parent when those children leave, or saying goodbye to our physical abilities when we age. But true love means needing people and inviting those people in to see us work through our changes as we struggle to get past the scared parts, even past death itself, to the connection underneath. True love is seeing past artificial limits, like our preferences about how somebody else acts. And true love is calling upon forgiveness and new possibilities and new connection over and over until we love even another's quirks and idiosyncrasies. Does anybody remember the movie Good Will Hunting? There was a beautiful scene where Robin Williams, who is the psychologist, and Matt Damon, who was Will, I don't remember Will's last name, but they were in his office and they were talking. And the psychologist was explaining to Will Hunting about love. He said, "She used to fart in her sleep. One night, it was so loud, it woke up the dog. And then she called out from her sleep, 'Was that you?' I didn't have the heart to tell her. But you know, Will, she's been dead for 2 years. And that's the stuff I remember. It's little things like that. Those are the things that I miss the most. The little idiosyncrasies that only I knew. That's what made her my wife. Oh, and she had the goods on me too. She knew all of my little picadillos. People call those things imperfections, but they're not, Will. That's the good stuff. That's the good stuff. It really is, but I'm convinced that if anyone got a disclaimer of the good stuff going into marriage, the marriage business would go under. It's like God said, romance serves a purpose. It is a meditative state. It puts logic to sleep so that people can come together. Otherwise, you guys probably wouldn't risk it. Overall, I concede. It's better, I think, that people go in with a lot of excitement and little experience. For true love is not saying, I love you and you're beautiful, but it's saying, I am here for you. I will be there for you, and you can count on me. In the words of Robert Fulghum, love is the grand prize and the garbage heap. It is cloud nine and a spiritual root canal. Love is a little taste of always and a big bite of nothing. And love is everything in between. It's why there is that part that says, for better or worse, richer or poorer, in sickness and health. It's the only language of a realistic warranty for the love that we're all looking for. It is the only game in town for people who really want to play, knowing that the love that we're willing to live is all the love we will ever really have. And the love that we really have is the only love that's true. In my mind, Zeus had it wrong. It was not our original wholeness that made us a threat to the gods. It was our ability to build love from the broken pieces of our lives that gives us our real power, to find our wholeness from amidst imperfection. From this, we discover the power to offer the presence that can resurrect the disappointments in our hearts and heal the brokenness in the world to the glory of life.
we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and pride, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Please join with me in reciting the words with which we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Friends, with one hand on your heart and the other reaching out into the world, let us go forth, remembering it is not our original wholeness that makes us a rival to the gods. It is our ability to build love back from broken pieces that gives us our power. So let us, with our hearts, practice the fine art of resurrection and restore love from disappointment and heal the brokenness in the world. Amen, and blessed be.